Welcome to Bet On It NFL Week 16, live from Nashville, Tennessee, or live to tape, that is. I am Kelly Stewart here from WagerTalk.com. We're going to get into some primetime games. We've got some TNA and, of course, some great props for all of you guys. Figure out if maybe there's a little sandwich here before we get to Week 18. Figure out which dogs are barking. Check in with Las Vegas Cris and, of course, come back with some of those best bets. We're going to have a rapid-fire edition because I've got a bunch of other stuff to do today. Marco D'Angelo, Thursday night primetime. Welcome in the New York Jets at the Cleveland Browns. This one's headed to half on the Wager Talk odds screen, total 36.5.
Well, Kelly, there's only one way to play this game for me, and we know how good the Jets defense is. It's about as good as the offense is bad. So I really don't want to lay the full 7 points, but I don't want the Jets either on the road on a short week. I'm going to go ahead and take Cleveland and the Joe Flacco-led Browns, but I'm going to take them in teasers on Thursday night. It'll start my weekend. It'll either be a good Thursday night if the Browns win, or I'll be coming from behind because I'll have several teasers with Cleveland. And why not? Look at what Joe Flacco has done. It's amazing that when they signed him that, yeah, I thought he was going to be a game manager, but he's been anything but. He's throwing the football all over the field, 40-plus attempts in all of the games, and he's had 3 straight 300-yard passing games. And the Jets, well, they're just the Jets. Last week, they jumped out to a 17-0 first quarter lead thanks to a boatload of Washington mistakes, and yet they still found themselves down 28-27, needing a game-winning field goal with 4 seconds left in the game. I'm not backing the Jets. Take Cleveland just to win the game on Thursday night in teasers.
At 7.5, Marco D'Angelo, I'd have to agree with you. Joe Raineri, welcome in. At Joe Raineri on X, as the kids call it these days. Talk to me about Thursday night football as the resident Jet fan.
So, as a resident Jet fan, that's about what this game is on Thursday night. How dare they not schedule this game, which could have been great, but unfortunately, this is going to be far from great. But ironically enough here, I want nothing to do with picking either of these two teams. But if I was going to play this game, Cal, I would absolutely go a little contrarian and take the over. Now, hear me out here. The Jets have gone over in 2 of their last 3 games. The Browns have gone over in 4 of their last 5. And both of these teams have 2 of the better defenses, and yet they're continuing to fly over the totals, which aren't that high to begin with. So there aren't any Browns or Jet games here as of recently that we could say were overinflated. We were expecting too many points. That's just not what we do. In fact, don't forget, last year in week 2, when both of these teams once again had quarterback problems, they combined for 61 points a year ago here. And listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You got Simeon in here, who, to me, is going to be good for a couple of turnovers at some point. I mean, the Cleveland defense is going to be really good at, flipping the script, getting the short field, giving Flacco and the Browns an opportunity to be able to win this game and maybe put a couple extra points on the board that they should not have had. Simeon and the Jets, he's going to set the Jets defense up for failure, as good as they are. And Flacco's been known to throw an INT or 2 as well, which wouldn't be very timely, but also give the Jets an opportunity to score some points they probably wouldn't otherwise have. I think the total's a little low here. I think because the defenses and the ability to turn teams over, I think short fields are coming. And yes, I think an over. In fact, don't be shocked on a short week if the over is what we end up seeing when this thing is all said and done.
Interesting. I kind of like that, but a contrarian. But speaking of overs, this total is high. Saturday primetime, Detroit is a 6-point underdog at Dallas, who's back home. Total 53.5. Joe Raineri. I don't know if I can trust Dallas with this many points, but Detroit finally clinched a division the first time in life. So they've got to be maybe feeling themselves a little too much here.
Well, listen, That was just disgusting, Dallas, on so many levels. But I feel like we've seen this movie before with Dallas, have we not? But wait, they're home. Yes, they are home, and they are 7-0 at home, right? 6-1 against the number at home. The problem is they're not really playing the sisters of the poor here, are they? They're playing against a team that can go toe-to-toe and score just as many points as they can. So I'm going to focus there, but I don't want to have to watch this entire game. And I want nothing to do with both of these teams disappointing me when it's all said and done. So instead, I'll go with what I know is going to happen. The defense of the Detroit Lions, well, they've had some issues and have given up some points here, haven't they? Especially on the road. So we have seen backup quarterbacks go ahead and light this secondary up. I think Dak and Dallas are going to do exactly what they have done at home now for the entire season. They are going to try to race out in front and carry a lead in this game. And by doing so, and it usually always is in the first half when they play at home, they're very good early. I think they'll be very good early here. Their team total in the first half is 14.5. I'll be an SOB if they don't score at least 17 points in a game that is now lined up to 53.5. Somebody is scoring some damn points in this game early, and I think Dallas will stay true to form. I think this will be a 17-14 game going into the break. I don't think Dallas will have a problem getting over 14.5 points in the first half. And by the way, if they do, yeah, they're losing this game here because Detroit will not have a problem putting points up either. So, yeah, give me the Dallas team total in the first half up and over the 14.5, expecting a shootout of some sort.
Marco, fat and sassy, you used to say all the time. Detroit Lions benefited for turnovers last week. I know because I had the Minnesota Vikings. Do you think that maybe they're a little fat and sassy clinching the NFC North for the first time in almost 30 years?
Oh, that's a good segue. And Joe, I got maybe a New Year's resolution for you since this is the last show. Maybe, not be such a slacker in 2024. You could do the whole game, hang around.
No.
But no. Okay.
No.
Just a thought. That's
one word. Verb.
Hey, guys.
No.
Can one play decide the outcome of a football game? Ooh. Probably not. But one play can sure as hell dictate game flow. And what I'm talking about is the Dallas Cowboy running back that was trying to get to the end zone on Sunday on that opening drive and got helicoptered. And when the helicopter landed with the football on the wrong side of the goal line, and he got stopped at the 6-inch line. And then they fumbled on the next play after they used up half of the first quarter driving down the field and getting 0 points. And more importantly, starting Miami on their possession 99.5 yards away from pay dirt, Yeah, and what did Miami do? A long, lengthy drive that settled in a field goal and absolutely chewed up the entire first quarter. That is where Bovers go to die, and that's what happened on Sunday. And then throw in a rainstorm. South Miami. Go figure. Yeah. All right. All of that happened, and that's why you had a 22-20 final score in the Miami-Dallas game last week. Now we see a total of 53.5 after they went way under last week's total. Why? Well, because they're playing in Dallas, they're playing in perfect conditions, and they're playing two teams with prolific offenses, one team with a decent defense when they have a lead, and the other team with no defense, no matter if they have a lead or they don't have a lead. Where am I going? I'm going over, Rover, and that's it. There's just going to be a ton of points in this game. I don't see any team stopping the other team. And Detroit, you talked about, Kelly? Yeah, fat and sassy teams generally don't play good defense. We're going over in this one. Don't even think about it. Grab it now because I think it'll go up as we get closer to game time.
Fine, I'll play the first half over and the game over like a square bear. Blame you guys whatsoever here. Sunday night prime time, Green Bay. This one has been kind of a little bouncing back and forth between 1.5, 2. point underdogs at Minnesota. Total 46.5. Marco, I feel like this is the easiest one to just tease Green Bay with, of course, the Cleveland Browns.
Well, Kelly, that'll probably be one of my teasers that I will have tied to Cleveland, as I will have a lot of them tied to Cleveland on Thursday night. But yes, you are very astute in that. But I'll tell you where else I'm looking at in this one. This is a divisional game, the old black and blue division, NFC North. You've got two teams fighting for their playoff lives. The winner is still alive. The loser, well, it's been a nice year. Thanks for participating. We'll see you next year. They both come in here at 7-8, and they're looking up, trying to get into the playoffs. What's that mean? We're talking this is basically a playoff game. The winner stays alive. The loser goes home. And what do we say about playoff games? They have a tendency to be played closer to the vest. We don't want to make that early mistake. Give the other team an easy score. You've got, well, I don't know who we got quarterbacking from Minnesota this week. Green Bay's got a young quarterback in Jordan Love, his first year as a starter in a big game. They're going to want to keep things simple early on as well. Don't overthink it. 46.5, I think, is a high number for this one. Why? Because both teams were in high-scoring games last week, especially Green Bay against Carolina, that 33-30 game. You're going to see totally opposite style of game here. This is going to be no one wanting to make the mistake. Low-scoring game. Let's go under in primetime. Boy, I've heard that before. Primetime game going under? Yeah, let's do it.
Why do I have a sinking feeling that Joe Raineri is going to agree with you here?
I get far be it for me to step in front of that look there, Marco. I don't hate it. But the way Kelly introduced this game is exactly the best way I think to going. I cannot listen. Minnesota and that head coach O'Connell there, or Donald O'Connell, or whatever the hell he is. It's interception. How many times are you going to have second, third, fourth backup quarterbacks continue to throw 40 times in a game, not even attempt to try to establish a run, and allow them to throw interceptions and to pass your way out of any chance at winning games here? I do not understand the game plan. It's as if he's got one style of offense and that's it. It's either this way or the highway. There's no adjusting. And bottom line is, you looked your best when Dobbs was in and the threat of him actually tucking the ball and running was available to defenses because they had to worry about it. That is when this offense looked good, when they could actually run the ball, whether it be via the quarterback or a running back. Now, everybody's hurt with Minnesota. You've gotten your tight end. He's done for the year now. Addison is now done. You go up and down. The injuries here are ridiculous. Ed, for all the faults of this Green Bay team, and there are a ton, you know who doesn't turn the ball over and has not been turning the ball over? Yeah, that would be Jordan Love. And in a game like this, that's going to mean the world. I trust one quarterback not to turn it over and to do everything in their power to utilize the running game to control the tempo. And the other team is just, no matter what, we're throwing it. We're just going to keep throwing it. And as bad as Green Bay's defense has been, well, they're probably good enough to be able to get an interception or two off of Nick Mullins here. I can only trust Green Bay, but I trust them more in teasers than I do anything else.
Same and same. I cannot trust Kevin O'Connell, even though he was on that nice hot streak any longer. All right. Well, there is no Monday night primetime game of the college football playoff game. So make sure you guys head over to the Wager Talk YouTube channel and check out our little preview. We did 3 games for our last college football show. Gonna miss you guys over there for that one. But you know what I have really been missing? Yeah, Ralph Michaels. Let's bring him in. TNA Hotel Room Edition. Ralph Michaels and I both on the road for the holidays. But that doesn't mean we're going to short you on this week's TNA. But I did forget my glasses. Hopefully that is not a mush. Ralph, come in from wherever you are in the world. Let's get that streaker chart up and get through it.
Happy holidays from Cleveland. It was actually 68 degrees yesterday. What a nice Christmas present coming from Vegas and being able to wear shorts. So Let's start with the streakers, and we take a look. There's a couple red-hot teams against the spread. The Chicago Bears, you see the asterisk. So in the last 5 games, they've had 4 ATS wins and a push. The Rams with 5 straight ATS covers. By the way, Kelly, the longest ATS streak this year, the entire season in the NFL, was 6 by the Minnesota Vikings a month ago. So we'll see if the Rams can match that this week. 3 straight ATS losses, Raiders, Patriots, and Bucks. 4 straight losses. Take a look at those teams. Kelly, you see Minnesota has 2 asterisks. So in the last 4 games, they've lost 2 and they pushed 2. But again, the team that had 5 straight covers, now 0-2-2 against the spread the last 4 games. Overs. The Green Bay Packers with 5 straight overs. The Bengals with 4 overs. New England and Pittsburgh, the 2 under teams the first half of the year, both with overs. And Dallas and Seattle both with 3 straight unders. So going into this week of the NFL, those are your streakers for this weekend.
I can't believe it's NFL Week 17, Ralph, and we've got a lot to unpack because some teams have clinched a playoff spot. Some teams are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. Some teams are fighting for their lives. Some teams are going to maybe be resting some starters here coming up. So help us navigate it. I know you've got 6 systems for us this week.
I do. I have a chart first, Kelly. And, when I was watching the TV this past week, you saw the jumbled AFC with all those teams 8-7 and 7-8. So I wanted to go back to look how 7-8 teams do and 8-7 teams do. Now, we've talked about this in college football a lot. When teams are 5-6 heading to the final week, it means you either finish the season at 500 or a losing team. Well, if you're 7-8 or 8-7, remember, though, there is a difference because the last few years, we've only played 16 games. So this would have been the final game of the season. Now that we played 17 games, so take these numbers with a grain of salt because the situation has changed. But I wanted to look and see 7-8 teams. I went all the way back to 2007 for those 7-8 teams. Take a look, though, at the home and away splits, Kelly. If you are 7-8 at home, you have covered 66.7%. If you are 7-8 on the road, you've covered 37.1%. That's a pretty big markup. And then on the very bottom, you see I broke them into favorite and dog, and then the home favorite, home dog, away favorite, away dog. Take a look. 7-8 teams as a home favorite, 17-5, 77%. 7-8 teams as an away favorite, 2-10. I obviously didn't list the teams available because it's easy for you to see, and there's so many. On the right-hand side, this one surprised me. 8-7 teams since 2015 at home. They've covered 77%. On the road, they've covered 64%. And take a look at those 8-7 teams that are a favorite. They have gone 14-3, 82.4% since 2015. So just giving you some perspective that those teams that are playing for a 500 record or those teams that are playing to be a winning team with or without the playoffs is a powerful motivator, not only in college football, but this chart shows you in the NFL as well.
So those above 500 teams are teams who are wanting to play on and even get above 500. That bodes very well for my best bet at the end of the show. Okay, Ralph, a little rapid fire action here with these systems.
Well, Kelly, hotel this week, we didn't know what the connection was going to be like. So in case I had to call in on the phone, I did some charts for you guys. These are my 6 systems for this week. I put them in a PDF form so you guys can see. I'll go through them quickly, but hey, easy to read, I hope. You can see the results and you can see who it applies to. System 1, Kelly, play the over. If both teams have a win percentage above 65%, it's late in the year, so you are a quality team, game number 9 or later, and the total is 40 and higher. You see that they've gone over 58.5%. That applies to the Cowboys, Lions, Ravens, Dolphins. System 2, fade the home dog of +3 and higher if their opponent is off a loss as a home favorite. So the Commanders are a home dog of 3 or more. The 49ers are off a loss as a home favorite. So those teams like Washington have covered only 23.8%. System 2 says to fade the Commanders. System 3, fade a dog of 6 and higher if they are up. An upset win as a dog of 6 or higher. This is one of my favorites, Kelly, because people think, oh, they won as a dog, and sometimes that's just a fluke game. Well, teams like the Patriots have only covered 27.2% of teams in that situation. So it says, hey, Patriots off that upset win. Teams do not pull the upset again when they're a big dog. A 27.2% cover. So there are systems 1, 2, and 3. Let's switch the board. And we'll go to systems 4, 5, and 6 and show you that data. System 4, play on a division road team if they lost the first meeting as a home favorite. 65.2%, Kelly. Very strong, very big sample size, and it makes sense. You're playing a division foe. The first meeting of the year, you were embarrassed. You lost as a home favorite. You are turning around and you are getting revenge to the tune of 65.2%. 3 teams this week. It applies to New Orleans, Tennessee, and the LA Chargers. We'll see what happens with the Chargers. They're playing so ugly. System 5. Kelly, I made some jokes. Friends don't let friends bet Service Academy games under the total on Twitter, over the total. Well, guess what? When Ron Rivera is a dog, friends don't let friends bet the under on those teams. Since Ron Rivera has been a coach at both Carolina and Washington, his nickname is Riverboat Ron. And when they are a dog of 7 or more, they have gone 26-5 to the over, 84%. It's something that I have not played against in years. Doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to play on it, but I'll tell you what, I always throw it in the mix at the beginning of the week. That's how strong this system has been. So System 5 says Commanders 49ers over the total. And finally, fade a favorite with a win percentage above 50% if they are off a win as a home dog and it's week 4 or later. And the reason we look at week 4 or later, because you can go 1-0, and that doesn't mean you're a winning team. But by week 4 and later, if you're 50% or better, you're obviously 2-1 or 3-1 or have a winning record. So the Buccaneers have a winning record. They're a favorite, and they're off a win as a home dog. So this says the fade Tampa Bay, it's 36.1% on Tampa Bay or a 63% fade system on the Bucs. So there is a double this week, Kelly. There's 2 against Tampa Bay this week, so we'll see what happens with those double systems. In the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've had 2 of them. They've split. 1 won, 1 lost the double. We'll see what happens with this double this week. So happy holidays, happy New Year to everyone. I'm glad the connections worked at the hotel. I'm in now rainy Cleveland, but it still beats the snow.
Yes, it does. Thank you to Ralph Michaels for always bringing us that day, even when he's traveling. At Cal Sports LV, make sure you guys are giving him a follow. We're going to pivot now, and we're going to go to somewhere where there is snow on the ground. Andy Lang is freezing his butt off in Indianapolis.
Wrong once again, Kelly. Hope that wasn't your best bet for the week. It has been beautiful here. Haven't touched a jacket in over a week. Gonna go for a nice little walk around the neighborhood in some light pants and maybe a t-shirt. So actually beautiful here in Indianapolis.
I got bad weatherman news then. Sorry, everybody told me Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska got hit with an ice storm. I thought maybe you guys saw the aftermath. My fault. I'm glad you had a nice, warm Christmas.
Yeah, once again, not all of these states just mesh into one, Kelly. We all have our own distinct individuality. We are not flyover states, but you coastal elitists, I see how it is. Just, oh, it's cold in Kansas. It must be cold in Indiana and every other state in the Midwest.
It's cold
Unbelievable.
in Nashville. I am freezing right now, as a matter of fact, but that's because my body is acclimated to degrees. All right, Andy Lang, as always, we will talk about the game that involves my best bet, and we will talk about your best bet. But first, a lot is being made of, well, of course, those incentives. Week 17 and 18, quarterbacks want to help get their receivers over that nice bonus. Guys get a couple more, so they may get left in a little bit longer by the coach. You know how this kind of works. But is it all getting a little overblown at this point?
Yeah, this is my worry this year. The contract incentives have gotten very popular over the last couple years with the explosion of player props. And this used to be kind of a hidden under the radar type of thing. And now it's very popular. I have never been asked about contract incentives 2 weeks before the season's over, and I'm already getting questions this week. So if I'm getting questions, what do we always say? The books have this baked into the lines. So this year, I'm actually a little nervous about following some of these contract incentives, because if someone needs like 90 yards, I can see the books putting it at like 96.5 yards. So we're going to tread a little bit light on the incentives. A couple I'm keeping my eye on. Baker Mayfield has some really good incentives if he finishes top 10 in a bunch of passing categories. Dalton Schultz can make some really nice coin if he gets to a couple reception milestones. My favorite is Joe Flacco, who we're going to talk about in a minute. He gets like $75,000 per win, and he gets monster paydays if they win in the playoffs. Monster paydays. And then Austin Eckler, who, listen, full disclosure, I had written him off. I thought he was left for dead. Instead, after the Chargers are eliminated from the playoffs, they decide Eckler's going to be a workhorse. He now has put himself into position to get a really, really nice $1 million incentive with his total rushing and receiving yards. That one could be the most interesting and the biggest payoff for incentives. We'll keep an eye on it. 2 weeks out, I'm not really that concerned. But next week, we'll have a lot more clarity as to who needs what.
I kind of had a feeling we may see that be a little bit overblown. Before we get into my game, tell me what you got over at Wager Talk.
Well, we have a 5% NFL play that is up. We're on a 35-15 run over the last 5 weeks in NFL plays, so we're closing out the season incredibly strong. Really, just use the promo code HOLIDAY7. It gets $30 off a 7-day pass. That's by far the best deal. It gets all 5% plays, all sports, all percentages. So you're going to get every single sport: NHL, NBA, our darts plays, NFL. $30 off a 30-day pass. Normally, it's priced at $99. It marks it down to $69 on checkout. By far the best deal right now. Promo code HOLIDAY7, Andy Lang at wagertalk.com.
All right, on Christmas Day, I faded the Raiders, thinking, hey, they're off Thursday night win over the Chargers. Was that a little fraudulent? And, well, I was wrong, Andy. But I'm going to go back to fading them again this week. And I like the Indianapolis Colts, but you like the team total over for the Raiders. That doesn't bode very well.
Yeah, so I don't know if I buy that the Raiders and Aiden O'Connell are as bad as they were on offense last week. Aiden O'Connell didn't have a completion outside of the first quarter, which is insanity. He threw for 62 yards. Just a very strange game. And when you have these really, really strange, odd games, I kind of tend to think people overreact to them, and I just kind of throw them out. I mean, this is a team that scored 63 points against the Chargers, but then again, this is a team that also lost 3-0 to the Vikings. I'm looking more at the Colts side of it, and I do not believe in this Colts defense. They are so injured, and they just gave up 29 points to the Falcons. I think the Steelers game threw everybody off the set. They hold the Steelers to 13 points. That was a Mitch Trubisky game. The Steelers were horrendous in that game. But before that, the Cincinnati Bengals put 34 points up on the Colts. The Tennessee Titans even put up 28 points on the Colts. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers got over this total at 20 points. This is a fade on the Colts defense. That Atlanta game was really, really tough to watch. The Colts couldn't get anything going on offense with Michael Pittman being out and banged up. Their running game is really bad, so they're not keeping the other team off the field. I think everyone is just going to be very, very sour on this Raiders team, as you are. I'm going to try and be a little bit contrarian here. I think Aiden O'Connell has success against this Colts secondary, and that running game of the Raiders looked pretty good against Kansas City. So I'm going to go with the Raiders to get to 3 touchdowns over the Indianapolis Colts here.
How about 24?
Yeah, that's fine. Maybe the Colts just explode and go ballistic on offense. That crazy Minshew to Pierce, whoever the Colts are throwing out the wide receiver. So, yeah, baby, let's just have a high-scoring game in this one. We both can win.
You're like me with the Denver Broncos. It's very funny to see. Okay, Andy, I need your best bet for NFL Week 17.
What does the great Joe Raineri say? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And listen, we've joked about this, but betting on Joe Flacco to go over his passing total was not something that I expected to be doing in 2023, and yet here we are. His passing total is stunningly low. It's 230.5, and I get it. If they're playing the New York Jets, who over the last 3 games have only allowed 137 yards passing, which is very impressive. Their rush defense is not very good. Their pass defense is great. I'm just not sure about the competition. The Washington Commanders use the deadly combo of Brissett and Howell. They barely got to like 150 yards. Against Miami, Tua only got to 224, but they didn't really need to use Tua a whole lot as the running game was going pretty well. They beat up on Houston pretty good, but they had quarterback injuries. I'm just looking at these numbers on Joe Flacco, and I cannot ignore him. He's thrown over 42 times in every single game. He threw exactly 42 in the last game. Here are his passing totals the last 3 games: 368 against Houston, 374, 311 before that. And the other thing, the Jets, you can run on them. This is a Browns team that absolutely cannot run. They are averaging 1.7 yards per carry the last 2 games. If you're the Browns and you're coming off of a short week, you're going to stick with what works, and that's Joe Flacco throwing the ball all day long. I think they may want to run the ball. I'm not sure they're going to be able to do it with success. If Flacco gets 40-plus pass attempts like he has every start for Cleveland, I think he gets over here just by sheer volume. So I think this number is just a little bit too low. They're giving a lot of respect to the New York Jets pass defense. I get it. It's too low. I'll keep riding with Joe Flacco over his passing yards.
He is Andy Lang at Bump Sports on Twitter. You can also check out all of his other free prop bets that he so generously gives out on the Wager Talk Instagram channel. Thank you, Andy, and we'll see you next week. Time to bring back in Marco and Joe and figure out how high Joe got during that commercial break.
I feel that's a great segue into this week's game for a total that also is a little too high for my taste, and that's going to be the Steelers and the Seahawks here, hovering around that 41.5, 42 number. And listen, nobody is going to confuse Seattle for some sort of offensive juggernaut here, at least not recently anyway here. Geno Smith got the job done, thankfully, as that was our best bet last week at 2.5, and he did orchestrate that game-winning drive there at the end. But it's the defense of Seattle that's kind of interesting here to me, is they've allowed 17 points now in back-to-back weeks. They have not been playing good offensively, but the defense has risen to the occasion in these much have-to-win games here that they've been involved with. And now the Steelers, boy, talk about fat and sassy. I guess Mason Rudolph just comeback player of the year or whatever we're going to do. He's the greatest thing in the world. What was he doing on the bench? Like, everyone just settle down here. I can absolutely see him struggling on the road, 12th man in a tough place to play in Seattle, where their defense has gotten a little healthier. And oh yeah, they are playing lights out. I don't think this is going to be a high-scoring game in any way, shape, or form. I think the Steeler defense on the road is certainly going to do enough to limit Geno Smith in the offense. They're going to try to run the ball, Seattle. They have to try to run the ball here. You can't have Geno dropping back 40 times in a game and thinks that's going to work out well. Give me the under 41.5 in a battle in which I really do think 20, whoever gets to 20, wins this game here. It feels like a 20-14 kind of game. So a little too high for my taste in this one with the Steelers and the Seahawks.
All right, Marco, since Joe's a little too high, might be time to feed a sandwich.
Ooh. There is, Kelly, and I got a question for you because I did bring you a sandwich, and I'm going to bring you a cheesesteak sandwich. Do you want cheese whiz, or do you want mozzarella or provolone? Which way do you go with your cheesesteaks?
So I've only ever had like a real Philly cheesesteak one time. Our producer Dan brought me one when I was severely hungover before Army Navy, and he elected to go with melted, and it was a white cheese. So I'm not sure what it was, but it's the only way I've ever had it, and it was pretty damn good.
That's the way I take it. A lot of people put the cheese whiz. I'm not a cheese whiz fan. You can just hold that. So I have your sandwich. It is the Philly cheesesteak special this week. And what we're looking at is we are going to be fading the New York Giants because they are in the middle of that big old Philly sandwich. They played Philadelphia last week. We saw the game. It was not close. Then it was close. Then they actually had a chance to win. All of that. And then they came up short. Then they're going to play the Rams this week. And the Rams are a team nobody wants to play right now. They are playing some damn good football. They've won 5 of the last 6 games. They're a punt return in overtime away from a 6-game winning streak. And I always like to go against teams coming off a close loss as a big dog. I also like the situation because look who the Giants finished the season up with. Their season has been a season to forget. The only way to salvage anything from this season would be to play spoiler. Yeah, they could play spoiler to the Rams this week, but don't you think it would be more satisfying to deny the Eagles the NFC East next week when they play them at home? That's what I'm banking on. I'm going to ride the hot team. You got the Giants. Tyrod Taylor had to come in last week. Looks like he'll be your starter this week. You want to give me Tyrod Taylor versus Matthew Stafford? Week to prepare for Tyrod rather than coming in cold off the bench and scrambling around? Yeah, okay. I'll take the Rams all day long. Lay the points with the Rams. They're clicking. The offense is rolling. The defense will be able to pin their ears and come after Tyrod when they fall behind and have to become one-dimensional. Yeah, it's been a nightmare of a season for the Giants. They can't wait for this season to end. I'll go with the Rams and ride the momentum. L.A., 31-17, and enjoy that Philly cheesesteak, Kelly.
I will, Marco, because it is almost time for lunch, but we got to get this show over with first. And that means we got to get on to those barking dogs. Week 17 and 18 are tough for barking dogs, right? It all depends on motivation. So give me a little insight into how you found your dog this week. Think they have a chance to win outright.
Well, Kelly, this is called Who's the Flavor of the Week? And I'll go against them, okay? Because that has been gold. You know, last week after Buffalo demolished the Cowboys, everybody wanted to take Buffalo against the hapless Chargers, didn't they, on Saturday night? Well, how'd that turn out? Buffalo was lucky to get out of there with the win. The Chargers, after being embarrassed on Thursday Night Football, came to play. Oh, I think I mentioned that last week. Well, who is everybody's darling this week? It is now the Baltimore Ravens. Not only are the Ravens everybody's pick to go to the Super Bowl in the AFC, which I know Kelly likes that, and I know I like that because my clients are cashing that 5% play we had on them making the playoffs this year easily. Now, all of a sudden, you had Brock Purdy, used to be the MVP favorite. Now it's Lamar Jackson. It's just, it changes week to week. So who is going to want to take Miami? Miami won last week. They beat Dallas, but they didn't beat them in convincing fashion. And we talked about, you know, that one key play in that game that could have turned that game the other way around. So everybody's going to want to ride Baltimore off of that impressive showing on Monday Night Football. Remember, those Monday night games when all of the world is watching, everybody loves to bet the next week. What they just saw doesn't work that way. I'm going to take the Miami Dolphins here, plus the 4 points. This is actually for the number 1 seed. I think this line is too high. I think, Joe, you could have used it in your segment here.
Yes.
But I'll go ahead with it, and I'll say it is too high, and I'm not that high not to notice it. Give me Miami plus the points. This one goes down to the end. I got this as a field goal game either way, and I think instead of Justin Tucker kicking the game-winning field goal, it's going to be the Dolphins. 27-24 for my barking dog.
Ooh, that was very close to being my best bet. There was a few games in contention this week, and that was one of Mark. I'm with you. The Dolphins plus the point. Joe Raineri, per usual, I need a bigger one from you.
Yep, and you know, all you have to do is ask, and I'll deliver here, Cal. His 4 point dog there is cute, Marco, but we're going to go a little bit bigger here. And we're going to look at a 7-point dog with the Cincinnati Bengals here. Can somebody explain to me, who in the hell are the Kansas City Chiefs, who I believe have gone what now? They started off 6-1, and now they can't seem to figure out how to win a damn game anymore. And you know why? It's not getting better. It's actually getting worse. Why? Well, a couple of reasons. A, their receivers still suck and can't get open. B, they've become extremely one-dimensional. And C, yeah, Patrick Mahomes is running out of patience. And we can tell that because they are now tied for the worst turnover margin in the league with the Washington Commanders. You want to talk about perception versus reality. We have seen this now over the last month and a half with Kansas City. Oh, they lost. Oh, they got it back, Kansas City. Oh, the bounce back. What are they bouncing back to besides getting worse as we're watching them here? They are getting worse. They have absolutely no business laying a touchdown against anybody. Travis Kelce has got 1 touchdown in these last 8 games. Can you believe that? 1 touchdown here. Why? Because nobody else can get over. The receivers can't get open, and Patrick Mahomes is forcing balls into places he shouldn't be doing it now. Turnovers are happening, and have you noticed how the defense begins to drop off? Did you see how they ran against them, the Raiders, against Kansas City at Arrowhead here? Yeah, well, Cincinnati is going to do just that. Not to mention, maybe it's not Joe Burrow, but trust me, losing last week for Cincinnati was maybe a blessing in disguise for those of you that want to back Cincinnati this week. You got one team is going down the drain, which the market refuses to adjust to, and you've got another team with revenge on their mind, with certainly a good enough running game and weapons to expose this Kansas City defense, just like we saw the Raiders do. And yeah, it's not going to require Browning to have to throw for 300 yards to do so. Give me the 7 points and the money line. I think it is all but over in Kansas City, even if the market doesn't want to believe it so.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. Last week, I thought they would have a nice bounce back, if you will, against a Raiders team that was maybe a little bit overblown, but nope, sure could not get it done. Let's get right into these best bets because VR has notified me that he will not be here gracing us with his presence this week. So you guys can leave him a comment or two and tell him how sad you are that he on Christmas vacation. But for my best bet, I'm going to lay some chalk this week. As I mentioned in an earlier segment, well, I wanted to bet against the Raiders last week with the Chiefs. I'm going to bet against the Raiders again this week. Aiden O'Connell, rookie quarterback, he's doing okay. Okay. And even last week, it wasn't okay. They still somehow managed to win this game with that Raiders defense and, frankly, how flat the Chiefs looked. I understand this team has been on an ATS hot streak, 6-1 against the spread in the AFC season, but I like the Colts. I know Indianapolis lost last week, and if you remember, we bet against them last Monday, but this team does control its own destiny. 5-2 against the spread and straight up in their last 7 games. And while the last couple of matchups here might not seem that fair, being at home to the Raiders and the Texans, I think the Colts are going to make the playoffs here with winning both of these games. Now, Andy might not believe in Minshew magic, and maybe I haven't always been a believer in him, but I do think that he will get success here against this Raiders team. The Colts defense just has to play just a little above average to stop Aiden O'Connell and this abysmal offense. I like the 3.5 here, so I'm going to lay it with the Colts. Marco D'Angelo, week 17. Give me your best bet.
Well, Kelly, to be honest with you, Indianapolis was in the running for my best bet as well, but I had to go to my hometown team and fade them.
Yes.
I went with them last week, and this is the week I go against them. And I was there for the Mason Rudolph magic that we saw last week. But let's be realistic. And people in Pittsburgh, well, I'm going to get Kelly, you think you get yelled at from the Texas followers? Wait till I make this statement. Yes, Mason Rudolph had a good game, okay? He threw a 7-yard pass that Pickens caught and ran 80 yards the rest of the way. It wasn't a bomb, okay? He just got behind the defender and has that track meet speed. This is a team that had a series of big plays last week, and it was a Cincinnati team that could not get out of their own way last week. Now they're going to travel on the road to play Seattle. And Seattle is finding ways to win games. You had Geno Smith come back last week. It wasn't pretty last week, but they got the job done. And I always say teams that win in ugly fashion find a way to improve on that the next week. That's what starts them back on streaks. And you've got the Seattle team that has won 2 games in a row after losing 4 in a row. Hey, look at the 4-game losing streak that they had. It was at the Rams, at home against the 49ers, on the road at Dallas, and then on the road at San Francisco. That was a gauntlet of a 4-game stretch for Seattle. So no shame in what they were doing. Plus, they had a banged-up quarterback, and they were missing the quarterback in one of those games. Now Geno's back. He's got a 2nd game under his belt. He will play better this week. And let's be honest, the Steeler defense looked phenomenal last week because Cincinnati was not balanced at all. Seattle will be able to run and throw the football this week. I think they win this one going away, and it will put, for the first time in his career, Mike Tomlin's streak of never having a losing season while head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers in serious jeopardy. I'm taking Seattle. Don't hate me, Pittsburgh. 27-13.
Oh, boy, Marco. Oh, boy. Okay, good luck with that. It's not that I disagree, but I feel like you're going to be very sad when Mike Tomlin leaves for a better job because he's unappreciated in Pittsburgh. Joe Raineri, give me your best bet.
All right. So, listen, I think a lot of interesting narratives coming up in this weekend here. We're still, even in week 17, playing, well, there's no way that this team can lose again, or they're going to bounce back. Well, styles make fights at this point, and I think this line, which stuck out to me right off the bat, was maybe the wackiest of them all. Dallas should not be laying a touchdown against the Detroit Lions in any way, shape, or form, and for a couple of reasons why. Number one, Dallas is not the better team on a neutral field. That's number one. Number two is, if we've learned anything about this Dallas team, and while, yes, they're 7-0 at home, and everyone keeps saying, oh, but they're perfect at home. They love playing. Yeah, I get all of that. But again, who have they beaten at home? They certainly haven't beaten a team as good as the Lions have been on the road. They're 6-2 on the road, 6-2 against the number on the road. And the problem in what we learned with the Cowboys against Buffalo, the Cowboys don't like it when you punch them in the mouth. They don't like those physical, upfront kind of teams here. It bothered them and it screwed them up big time. We even saw Miami and Bradley Chubb all of a sudden look like Lawrence Taylor in that game. There's some issues on this Cowboys offensive line, and if there's one thing we know about Dan Campbell and this Lions, is they pride themselves on being more physical and punching teams in the mouth. That's exactly what they are going to do here. Not to mention, it's not even about Jared Goff. It's about the running game. They're averaging 141 rushing yards a game. They're 4th in rushing efficiency. They can run the ball all over this Dallas team. There is no way, and I'm not saying Dallas isn't going to have some success scoring. They certainly are. But the idea that they're going to win this thing by a touchdown or more simply because they've been good at home is ridiculous to me. I think this is a field goal game one way or the other, and I think Dallas is going to have absolutely their hands full. It's going to be who kicks the field goal as time runs out. I want as many points as you want to give me, and in this case, I'll take the 6 with Detroit.
All right. Looks like I like everybody's best bets, which means I have too many games to play once again in a league that, well, is basically determined in the fourth quarter. Let's get that recap graphic. I got to make all the jokes, you guys. I'm an insufferable NFL better. I have more trophies than I ever care to imagine, but hey, we got it done last week with the Ravens outright winner. Let's get it done this week, maybe with the Lions outright winner for Joe. From myself, Marco, Joe, Andy, Ralph. Until next week, let's bet on it.